Once upon a time, there were young princes and princesses trying to find their way in the world. They were getting a bit fed up with the kings and queens always asking what they wanted to be when they grew up, when actually all they really wanted to do was hang out with other princes and princesses and post their new crowns and tiaras on social media. Sometimes they daydreamed of fairy godmothers and magical frogs and the times when they could have castles of their own and cool, insta worthy jobs with which they could buy awesome new carriages. What they didn't know was that they were actually going through a period of brain development where their brains were pruning and enhancing neural pathways that would prepare them to be kings and queens of the future. They didn't know that this was a key phase to develop who they were in the future. And that's why sometimes they could be grumpy, sometimes they took risks like leaving balls after midnight, or why they slept for far too long, which incidentally has nothing to do with poisoned apples, but their brains needing to rewire. Many of the darling princes and princesses were coming to the end of the school, and these awful decisions were becoming too real. In desperation, the kings and queens advised that they speak to a careers advisor. They were not sure about this. Careers advisors were old, read books, and therefore dusty and irrelevant, and probably wore elbow patches. However, the careers advisor in their kingdom was doing a thing called a PhD and wanted to help all young people to make decisions about themselves. This careers advisor knew that emotion and imagination were sensitive in adolescents because of their hotly wired limbic systems, and that the princes and princesses may benefit from storytelling to help them find out more about who they were, the world around them, and their place in that world. This careers advisor had read that brain uses similar pathways in imagining to actually performing activities, and that storytelling might actually help the princes and princesses to learn more about their future, and that stories had helped their kingdoms to learn about their culture, rules, and themselves for millennia. So the princes and princesses went to the aforementioned dusty careers advisor and found to their surprise that although they were old and a book reader, they did understand them or were not so dusty after all. The careers advisor helped them to tell amazing stories about themselves, who they might be in the future, and who they definitely did not want to be. They could tell stories with film, collage, draw, or write, and they liked this because having a choice was important to them. The careers advisor hoped that storytelling might be fun, and it did help the princes and princesses to connect as they told each other ideas. The careers advisor didn't wave a magic wand, so definitely wasn't a fairy godmother, but they did help the princesses and princesses to see who they might be in the future and what that future might feel like. It helped them to answer not what they wanted to be, like the other old people had asked them, but who. And that felt like a much better question, with no magical frogs in sight.